Good afternoon, everyone. You're all very welcome to Underground Cinema. As you know, right the way through the month of October, we are interviewing as many nominees for the Underground Cinema Awards, the 13 Underground Cinema Awards, which are going to be taking place very shortly on November 5th in the Royal Marine Hotel in Dún Laoghaire. One of my favorite awards is the Rising Star Award, and we introduced that particular award. I think it was about nine years ago. And we introduced it because we wanted to sort of acknowledge directors or writers or producers that we feel that are up and coming talent. And I'm delighted to say that Cody Farren's with us here today, and we really were very much impressed by his film An Irish Goodbye. You're very welcome, Cody.
Hi, Dave. Thank you very much. Cheers. That's very nice, kind words to say, and I really appreciate it.
Not at all, and credit where credit is due. I think your film has touched on something that is sort of bubbling under the surface. To be honest with you, and maybe you could tell everybody just a little bit about it. We'll show the trailer, but if you could just give everybody an idea of what the film is all about.
So, An Irish Goodbye, basically by its logline, is about a man who's attempting to write a suicide note for his parents, and as he struggles to do so, he decides to use the metaphor of an Irish goodbye and to leave early as one would going to a party or a disco or whatever. But although that may be the base layer of what it's about, it's really about the modern Irish youth culture's relationship with our mental health and our relationship with drugs and alcohol and sex and love and politics and all those things that affect our mental health at the same time. And these are all things that are contemporary issues, but I also feel the things that have been going on for every generation, but just the way I'm talking about it now was specifically about the contemporary Irish youth culture. And within that, I also wanted to talk about what Irishness means for my generation, for the contemporary Irish youth culture, because my idea of Irishness is very different than my father's idea of Irishness or my grandfather's ideas of Irishness, and how these ideas pass down to us and how we are in conversation with them while understanding what it means to be Irish in my own, in 2022 as a 27-year-old or a 21-year-old or whatever,
Yeah, I mean, you're right. There's so many different versions. I think about my own grandfather and my own father, and their versions of Irishness are very different. And indeed, the world's perception of Ireland is very different. You have this stereotypical, Irish person when you think about America, and you cringe watching some. Especially some mafia films or some, gangster films, and you cringe that did they really perceive us to be like that, drunken Irish yobs, and sometimes it can be embarrassing watching it, but that's that unfortunately, that's the stereotypical perception that we have worldwide as a nation.
Exactly. Like even in terms of that, like in terms of my father's generation or my grandfather's generation, like Irishness was so connected to religion for a long time, and religion and our opposition to the English are two things that were so entwined with what it meant to be Irish. But now, like, I don't know as many practicing Catholics that are my age, you know what I mean, as I would in my parents' age. So to me, Irishness kind of lands, and this is just my own perception of it, is in our music and our art and our sport, like the real pillars of our culture. And obviously there's always been a big emphasis on our sport and stuff like that, so I didn't want to go into that while I was making that film. So I was like, to make a film about Irishness, and I think it's about our music and our art, well then making a film is part of the art, so it's kind of a meta conversation at the same time, you know what I mean?
Yeah, listen, your trailer's very short, but I'm going to play it anyway, Cody. Let's have a quick look.
Cheers.
I think I was born broken.
Brilliant. So we've I believe, watching this film, that this is a deeply personal film. and you only use one line in that trailer, and the line is, I think it was always broken. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on that, Cody?
Well, yeah. So like the choice to use that line, I think I was born broken, is kind of the idea that depression and a lot of mental health problems. And I'm not going into like severe mental illness and stuff like
Yeah.
that. That's a different conversation. But in terms of like depression and anxiety and stuff like that, there's not always there's not an external reason. You know what I mean? There's not a, you know, my girlfriend broke up with me, so I'm depressed, or my I didn't get the job opportunity I wanted, so I'm depressed, or whatever. It's your emotions cause your thoughts, as opposed to your thoughts causing your emotions. So if you feel that way, you're going to look externally at the world. So for someone in that position, and if they're following the rabbit hole back, they might just go, I think I was always this way. There's not an external reason for it. And as he goes on in the film, it's kind of tongue in cheek in a way, because he starts mentioning reasons why he might be feeling this way. But even he knows that none of them are really a concrete answer. It's kind of like there's a sarcastic nihilism to it that I wanted to have in the voiceover, which is very much a part of the modern Irish youth culture in terms of our art and our music and stuff. It's kind of how people in my generation look at the world. So that's kind of where it came from.
Yeah, and I think you handle it, very well. It's funny you should say that, because we've had an awful lot of films over the past year during our season that have dealt with mental health issues. And funny, we were only talking about it there 2 nights ago. We were interviewing Joe Hanley. Joe did a fantastic film called The Wall about just a man who's addicted to painkillers, and where we were just talking about how men find it very, very difficult, to open up and to talk, and an awful lot of it is held in, and we just don't seem to be able to talk about any sort of pressures that are on us at the moment. And by not doing so, it can lead to depression, and ultimately, in the worst case scenario, you're dealing with suicide as well. And I think you handle it very well, because also you break the fourth wall in the film as well, because your eye contact goes directly towards the camera, so you're not really talking. You're bringing us in to as the audience to your story, to explain your plight and what your I'm hoping I'm getting that right.
No, absolutely. That's kind of the whole point of it, because so he can't write the letter. That's the idea. You see him trying to write the letter and he can't do it. But in reality, the film is the letter. You know what I mean? This fictional person, or this everyman. It could be any man, woman, child. And the film itself is the letter that he's saying to people. So he can't actually talk about it. He can't write it down. He can't do anything. He just wants to go. But in fact, the whole voiceover that we hear is his letter. And if you notice in the film, the actor is his name's Parnell Scott. He's from Northern Ireland. He's a fantastic actor. Just a little plug from there. He's done some stuff on Channel 4 there recently. He's fantastic. And the challenge for him as well with that is the character never speaks actually in the film at all, only in voiceover. So you hear everyone else talking, but he never speaks. So just in terms of Parnell's performance as well, like he had to internalize all that and understand what part of the film he was at with the voiceover, and be able to express all that himself through him. And that's exactly what you're talking about. Sorry, something fell over there. It's exactly what you're talking about men not being able to talk, and this character doesn't. It seems like he's talking all the time, but in fact he's not. He's talking to no one. He's talking to us, but we're no one, because it's not real. He's talking to himself, and that's also an Irish thing as well. It's we're always very bent up about talking about our emotions and our feelings and what's going on, and I'm not going to get into where that comes from, but that's a very part of being Irish as well. So when I was writing it, and I realized it makes perfect sense for him never to speak, and he's around all these people that are chatting, and everyone's having a good time and everyone's partying, and it's all false faces. I was like, that's actually one of the most sadly negative Irish things about it, but that he never speaks about it. He never talks out like properly outwards to the people around him, although he's surrounded by people the whole time.
And in the way we all do that, we all do that. We can be sat in the pub. It doesn't matter what age you are. We can all be sat in the pub listening to somebody. And your thoughts are just absolutely running amok here. Do you know what? Good. I loved your use of a projector a number of times in the film, where where your lead is standing against the wall and the projector is used against them, and that sort of works really well with the thought process, because you can almost visualize at the same time his thoughts. It was very, very clever, very well done.
Yeah, I kind of thought like I didn't want to do like some cutaways to historical footage or cutaways to the 9/11 footage or cutaways to Michael Collins and stuff. I thought it'd be better to literally have it projected over him. And it's kind of, there's a shot, my favorite shot in the film is when the Michael Collins is there, and for just a moment, both their faces merge into one for a second. And it's Michael Collins is giving this proclamation speech, and Parnell, the main actor, is in its own way giving this big speech about his generation, and the two faces cross just for a moment. And look, obviously I see that because I've watched it 8 million times, but it's just little things like that. And I'm really happy with how the projector thing worked out, because I wasn't totally sure, but I also kind of had to just say, well, it has to work because I've written it in and we're going to shoot it. So it would want to work out well. And thank you for the kind words. I appreciate knowing that it worked out well.
I've seen it done before, and it's been a mess, to be honest with you, in certain circumstances. But I think with this particular narrative, it works quite well. It looks really good, and it sort of gives you sort of an idea of where, you know, our true national identity, his perception of it is. Would it be right to say that?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why there's even with that, with casting Parnell, for example. Parnell's from Northern Ireland, and when he did his audition, he auditioned in a Southern accent and his native accent. And I decided he was fantastic both, but I decided to do it in his Northern Irish accent because I thought that added something and another level to it, because this isn't like a Republic of Ireland goodbye. It's an Irish goodbye. It's the entire country. So that's why when you have the footage of Michael Collins stand there and then the crowd, and then you have the stuff about the Troubles and that, I'm kind of trying to cross the border with the connection here about, you know, it doesn't matter where you're from, what your creed, colour, religion is. You could be going through the same thing. But if we're in Ireland, this is part of the Irishness. Objectively put what our ideas of Irishness were, our history, on top of a contemporary individual trying to have a contemporary conversation, you know. If that makes sense.
It does, yeah. I also got the feeling, you know, again, I was speaking last night, funny enough, in the last interview when we were talking about the lockdown, the period, 2 years of lockdown, which is, as you know, as artists and as writers and actors and directors and so on, anybody that's involved in the arts, it's a very difficult time for an awful lot of people.
Yeah.
Now, to put a positive spin on it, we've seen some of the writing that has come through to us over the past year, and I've no doubt over the next year has improved immensely. And I do believe that writers have had more time to think about their work and to be able to work very well in the edit. And you know, I found myself thinking about my own experience during lockdown, where before lockdown I would have been, you know, out with the guys down at the pub with my friends every Friday night. All of a sudden that has changed. I've changed my lifestyle a lot, and I think when you're watching that film, you know, you're looking at the lifestyles of your friends and how it seems to have, you know, it changes. Certainly, am I right? Am I getting that right as well?
That's absolutely right as well. Like I wrote it at the start of lockdown, but I kind of, like, the lockdown had a massive effect on myself and a lot of my friends with our mental health, and, you know, young people as well. It's like, you know, a lot of people, we don't have our own families, so when we're at home, we're kind of on our own, and we're not out with our, you know, your friends or your family you had in your 20s or whatever the line is. So suddenly you can't see all these people. But when I was writing this, I knew I was writing something about my generation and my friends' experiences, but I did purposely want to avoid talking about the lockdown in it. Like, there's an air of it anyway, because we all know the effect it had on people's mental health, and these conversations are coming out now. But I didn't want to objectively talk about it, because I just felt, well, I was sick of hearing about it personally. You know, I kind of want to just come out the other end and go back to as normal life as possible. But I also think other people are probably sick of hearing about it as well, and it's kind of maybe beating a dead horse at this stage. You know, I think it'd be quite difficult to do something about the lockdown and stuff that would be fresh, although it doesn't mean it's not important and the effect, but it's kind of, you know, everybody's kind of talking about it, and I just didn't see how that would add to my film. So I was like, I'm at home on my own, I'm going to write a film about my friends and my generation and kind of the culture that was 2019 of young people going out and that kind of thing. And now in 2022, now that the film is released, is back out again. You know what I mean? Because it's even mad to think like we were shooting in a pub that had the adjusted opening hours because of COVID. So that's how we got to shoot in the pub in that morning, because they were like, oh, no one's going to be in here till later because we've adjusted our hours. It's kind of funny how that kind of it worked in our favor a little bit that way. Yeah.
You know what? This film, I'm just thinking. I had done a workshop with a guy from Dunleary, Rathdown County Council. It was a lockdown thing. It was actually, to be very brutally honest, it was a workshop that I was told I had to do. We work very closely with Dunleary, Rathdown County Council, and because lockdown had taken place, what they wanted us to do was to participate in a number of workshops, and sort of felt if I didn't participate in the workshops, any sort of grant in the future be out the window. So I'm being very honest, but I did it.
Yeah.
But during the workshop, the guy that they had sort of paired me up was sort of one-on-one sort of thing, but the guy they had sort of paired me up with had no idea about short films and filmmaking in general. He was a marketing guy, and I suppose he was there to tick all the boxes that day as well. So I suppose both of us were there to tick all the boxes. Yeah. So I got into the conversation and telling him, about independent filmmaking in Ireland, what we all do, the sort of films that are out there that a lot of people don't get a chance to see. And immediately he saw an opportunity for us, and maybe for indie filmmakers. And I see one here. He was talking about, and we've done a little bit like this before. We've gone to schools where we would, showcase some of these films to give, up and coming secondary school students an idea what the indie scene is like in Ireland, where you can go to learn your craft in IADT or in Loud or in Dunleary, whatever it is, just to sort of get them an idea. But your film, when I was watching it, it just sort of struck me when I was thinking back. I was saying, this would be a fantastic film to actually show in schools. And
that's funny. Sinead Brazel actually said that to me when I was being interviewed at the Mead Film Festival. We were doing a Q&A or whatever. Yeah. And I never thought of it that way. And I think you're dead right, because it is a very important issue. And I think the way you tell a story is more important than what you're saying as well, so when you read the log line for the film, you probably have an idea of the kind of film it's going to be, and then I feel like I kind of subvert that, and it has all these electric aesthetics and stuff, and there's nothing gruesome, there's nothing violent, there's nothing depressing, like overly depressing. You don't see anything happen. So I think that does add to the nature where you could show it in schools and you can talk about these topics without it being taboo, and it shouldn't be taboo. Like, it's an ugly topic because there's not an answer, and I think that's what holds some people back about talking about suicide and mental health and stuff. There's not there's so much conversation about all these other socioeconomic and political issues now, which is fantastic, but we know the answer. It's like, don't do that and do that. Now it's let's implement it. Whereas when you offer someone a film like this, which even may have held it back in certain other film festivals or categories, it's like, here's an honest portrayal. I don't have an answer. He doesn't find the error of his ways. He does exactly what he says he's going to do. It's ugly. It's not nice, but it's true. And I think that is kind of the importance of the film, to be perfectly honest. Like, thank you. I do agree. Like, I think young people can get a lot from seeing it, not to toot my own horn or whatever, but just with what it's about,
Yeah, there's so much that can be done. I mean, if you you screen that in a classroom full of, let's say, fourth year transitional year students up to say sixth year in secondary school, and it's a short film under 15 minutes. You have a Q&A and workshops out of that for nearly 2 hours, to be honest with you. Could go on all day, to be quite frank with you, and I think an awful lot of positives. If it's handled by the right people, indeed, if the filmmaker was there, to be brilliant. But if you had somebody to guide the class and a workshop on that, I think it's a brilliant piece to use in schools. I think
absolutely. I think if the film had the power to do that, look, that's all anybody's ever trying to do with cinema, isn't it? And art. And you're provocative, but not in like a Lars von Trier sense provocative, but like you're trying to provoke thought and you're trying to provoke conversation. And if you're talking about something like this, if that's the power that you think the film has, well, that's the biggest compliment I've ever gotten in my entire life. So that's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I absolutely think that that's what I wanted to do. Like even with sending it to these festivals and like what you guys do here with Underground is so amazing about getting as many people to see as many films as possible. I just want people to see this film. I don't care about anything else really. I just want eyes on it and as many people of every different generation, every race, creed, color, you know, location, whatever, to see it and go. I think everyone will connect with it. Although it's an Irish goodbye, there is, like you were saying earlier on, there's kind of a global like, connection to it because it's about what's going on up here, not about what's going on out here.
It's the same issue with youth all over the world. It's not just an Irish issue. It's a worldwide issue, you know. So I think it's a very important piece. And I think, you know, I mentioned it. You know, our panel are, you know, an international panel. They picked it, so that they've connected with it. You know, and that's you know, I think that's fantastic. But listen, what else? So what have you got in the pipeline? Have you anything coming up now at the moment? You're writing at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm in prep for a short film that I'm going to be shooting in January. It's called Animal. It's about a brutal school bully who was grieving the death of one of his victims, and I've basically been trying to make this film for 5 or 6, 7 years. Maybe I wrote the first draft in 2016 when I was in college, and a lecturer said to me, he said, "You wrote something special here, do something special with it," and that never left me. And I've been basically trying to get it made for the last few years, and now I'm in a position where I'm just like, I'm doing it. I'm going to do it. It's going to be much bigger. It's going to cost a lot more and whatever, but I think now's the time to do it. I made an Irish goodbye. The best advice I ever got was make the film you can, not the film you want, because in the process of making the film you can, it will become the film you want. And that's exactly what happened with an Irish goodbye. I would start making it because I knew I could, and then I fell in love with it, and I was like, this is exactly the film I should be making now. And because of that, I'm able to make this one now. So I'm so much happier that I made that first, and now I'm moving on to this film. But yeah, so hopefully next year I'll be back and we can maybe have another conversation about that one.
Fantastic. Well, look, Cody, I'm delighted for you. I'm going to wrap it up now. But listen, congratulations on that nomination. That's a very special one, you know. Two of my favorites are the Rising Star Award and the Best Student Award. They're two ones that I'm quite passionate about. So to get a nomination for that, it's a fantastic achievement.
No, it means a lot, really. It's lovely. Thank you very much, Dave.
Okay. All right, Cody. Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
You too. Cheers. Thank you.
Take care.